Since Yuji Itadori is about to fight Sukuna for the last time, and after his fights with Todo, Mahito, Hanami, the Cursed Womb death paintings, and now Megumi himself, we are here to wrap up his whole journey in one video. If you think Yuji is not complicated, you're about to be proven wrong. How complicated Yuji Itadori can be. He's the son of Kenjaku, the student of Gojo, and the former vessel of Sukuna. So he has a relationship with the strongest sorcerer, strongest curse, and a villain that has been older than Sukuna himself. Even Gojo said that having born with a strong body like Yuji is a phenomenal ability that happens once in many years. Even Sukuna admitted that he had trouble taking control over his body. Mahito was the first main villain for Yuji because he showed him what curses are truly capable of, and this is when Yuji's conflict with his inner demon came into the real world for the first time, and he finally was given the resolve to kill this guy once and for all. In chapter 214, we see Yuji try to empathize and understand Sukuna one last time, and after that he says that you have to die. That's all there is to it. He's ready to save Megumi, eat whatever it takes to get there, and then put Sukuna down once and for all. How will he do it? He still should have some cursed energy left from being Sukuna's vessel for sure, and we saw something related to this with Gojo too. When Gojo uses his hollow purple on himself, he said there was a damage difference, and it was because it was my own curse energy. If this concept is true, that means Sukuna's attacks will be doing close to 0 damage, and it'll most likely go down as a fist fight to see who's more durable. This does not mean Yuji will be or needs to be stronger than Sukuna first. It's more of a compatibility thing at this point, like an Angel and Sukuna. Angel's Jacob ladder can kill anything evil. Angel got closer to killing Sukuna because he's more evil than anybody. This is why people believed Angel killed Gojo even as a joke, because they can imagine him doing somewhat evil too. This is the first and only time we've seen Sukuna go straight to lie or die because he could not survive this. And then Hana got distracted by Megumi's face, and the rest is history. But the point I'm trying to make here is that a character does not have to be on equivalent power level to have a power that is useful against an opponent. And while I say I do think Yuji will blow for blow go with Sukuna eventually, I don't think he has to be the one on the power scale to equal Sukuna's might. If you go back to season 1 to Gojo vs Jogo domain expansion battle, you can see Gojo telling Yuji that sometimes compatibility and amount of cursed energy matters even in domain expansion. This is where that compatibility thing comes in again. But how did he get to that point? From being a high schooler to being the last hope to defeat Sukuna was a long journey itself. Yuji's first opponent is a grade 2 cursed spirit. A cursed spirit, for those who don't know, is the embodiment of collective negative energy. And the more negative energy there is towards one thing or one place, the stronger the curse that gets made will be. This curse then knocks around Megumi and beats him until he can't move. When Yuji comes, despite not knowing anything about cursed energy and barely knowing what a curse even was, he went in to protect the students. Yuji would show his extraordinary skills to Megumi, but defeat the spirit he had to eat the first of many fingers of the legendary king of curses, Sukuna himself. At this point, we only see Sukuna taking over Itadori to one-shot this grade 2 spirit and fight Gojo for 10 seconds. After that, he was given a choice by Gojo as if he would be willing to live and continue to be a vessel for Sukuna until he eats all 20 fingers or die at the spot. We know our favorite sensei would never do that, right? After that, Gojo gave Itadori one more finger to put him up to 2. Yuji's next major challenge is a special grade cursed spirit that would usually be reserved for Satoru Gojo, the strongest man in existence. Special grades are the strongest curses in the series, which according to the power scale should have minimum strength that's at or way above the level of a grade 1 sorcerer, depending on which curse you're talking about. Yuji attacks the curse with his curse tool, but the special grade is too fast for him, cutting his arm off before he even realized what was happening. At this point, the only other option was to use Sukuna to beat the cursed spirit, and the plan went well. Sukuna absolutely demolished the spirit, cutting it into 5 parts and taking his finger back. Sukuna almost killed Megumi until he felt something in him and took out his own heart instead of making a deal with Yuji for reviving him. him. At this point, Yuji now had a binding vow with Sukuna to give him control whenever he wanted and not to remember this deal. Yuji comes back to life in secret and starts his training with none other than the strongest sorcerer alive, Gojo Satoru. After he trains and learns to tap into his cursed energy, Gojo brings Yuji face to face with Jogo, one of the strongest cursed spirits alive and the strongest of the disaster curses. Jogo is even stronger than Sukuna at that point, as Gojo recognizes him as stronger than the one-finger Sukuna that he fought in front of Megumi, and the three-finger Sukuna which Megumi confirms after seeing Sukuna's strength for himself. Yuji thinks that Jogo is a monster that's stronger than any curse that Yuji has seen at that point too. Gojo was training Yuji to tap into his own cursed energy and controlling it by doing a 100 push-ups and 100 pull-ups and a 10-kilometer run. Wait, wrong training session. He made Yuji watch scary and funny movies to see how well he could control himself under different emotions. Cursed energy can reinforce the body, and Yuji has to train to channel and keep his cursed energy so that it doesn't leak all outside of him and go to waste. This, of course, makes Yuji even stronger since he can now amp up his power, defense, and speed with cursed energy that he could not use beforehand. One point everyone misses is that whenever Yuji was going through, Sukuna was seeing everything with him. When Gojo showed Jogo his domain expansion and his curse technique, both Yuji and Sukuna learned from that. Yuji as to how the domain works, and Sukuna saw what Gojo can do. Yuji would later go fight Junpei, a user of poisons that rots his enemies' bodies from the inside out. Junpei was being manipulated and later killed by Mahito. Mahito is one of the most strongest and dangerous curses alive at that point, with all of his attacks revolving around the soul. The soul is a concept in Jujutsu Kaisen that many don't understand, and because of that lack of understanding, they cannot defend it with cursed energy either. Mahito can't ignore the durability of his enemies and attack their souls directly, and doesn't take serious damage from anyone that doesn't understand the soul either. He's essentially unstoppable for most characters in the series at that point, let alone his latent potential that surpasses Jogo when he reaches his prime, and his rapid growth as a special grade that Nanami thinks no one will be able to deal with when he grows to his peak. Yuji then punches and damages Mahito, showing that not only can he compete with special grades, but he's also one of the few people that can attack the souls of his opponents with his bare hands. This is the point I was making at the start of the video. We've seen Yuji overcome many special grades of death paintings with just brute force. Now, I know Sukuna protects Yuji's soul twice, and was the reason Yuji could enter Mahito's domain without any risk. This is also a cool point in timeline, as this is where we see Domain's weakness for the first time. The outside barrier, which is weaker to attacks. This is used later again and again, so it's a good thing to remember. Yuji's next stop is the Kyoto's exchange event where he fights Todo, the monster of the Kyoto squad that everyone in the event wanted to avoid fighting. Todo was a grade 1 sorcerer who had been taking out special grade curses with his bare hands for over a year at this point, and can even damage one of the most durable cursed spirits in the entire series. Todo is also strong enough to take out the entire Tokyo squad by himself, and even with all their strength put together, they still don't think they can beat Todo. Yet Yuji can go 4 rounds straight against Todo. Todo also points out that Yuji has such low cursed energy that he can't even read his movements. Sukuna told us that no matter the scale of the attack, there is always a spark of energy from which one can guess his opponent's next move or curse technique that's about to hit him. Todo is one of the most experienced sorcerers in the exchange bin at this point, and Yuji can still hang with him and even pressure him on a 1-to-1 fight. While Yuji and Todo are fighting the entire Kyoto exchange, they are interrupted by an invasion from Hanami, the special grade disaster curse that stands above all others in durability and has a license to kill as he sees fit. Hanami is one of the disaster curses, so on top of being a special grade, he's part of a collective of the most dangerous special grades that both Tokyo and Kyoto have seen at this point. Even when Maki had to use Playful Claw that's described as being pure power itself, making her hit far harder than she would normally. And Megumi bring out Divine Dog Totality, the ultimate fusion of his first Shikigami. Hanami didn't even see them as being dangerous enough to unwrap its other arm. This would result in taking Yuji to a completely different level with a difference in understanding of cursed energy that's described as heaven and earth compared to those who haven't tapped into it yet. taking him to 120% of his potential and making using cursed energy as easy as breathing air. Yuji would not only learn back flashes, but hit them one after another, which was told to be a very difficult task for even a high-grade sorcerer. Together, Todo and Yuji pushed Hanami to the point where he had to use domain expansion just to hit them with an attack and stop them from using Boogie Woogie. Even Gojo catches wind of how strong Yuji's grown at this point and is impressed at his rapid growth. Not even seeing a reason to butt in when it comes to fighting Hanami. He does fire off a hollow purple later, but that's because he's Gojo. Yuji's next opponents are special grade death paintings, cursings that were made from Kenjaku impregnating a woman with a cursed spirit and leaving them for over 100 years to hone their techniques before bringing them all the way to life. He can make his own blood stop his own bleeding and hit Yuji with pierced blood. That's too fast for Yuji to react on his own, that he had so much power in it that he can rip through Yuji's arms and kill him if it hits his head with a single strike. Yet Yuji hitting him more than 3 times was something that he refused to let happen under any circumstances during the fight. After beating 2 paintings, he got 1 more finger and moved on to face the last brother of the death paintings. This isn't even remotely enough to stop Yuji, who not only took a supernova straight to the back, but several other attacks on top of that, with Choso finally beating Yuji by hardening so much blood around him that Yuji couldn't punch through it, countering Yuji and leaving him on death's door. It's worth mentioning that whenever Yuji fought a death painting and was about to die, his opponent somehow got a vision that they were all related somehow by getting memories run through their minds, which I'm not sure if it was Sukuna or Kenjaku or something else. In Shibuya arc, we also saw Itadori getting up to 15 fingers and Sukuna going on a rampage against spirits and sorcerers. Yuji gets healed when Sukuna takes over his body and faces off against Mahito again in Shibuya, and Mahito is far stronger than he was before. It's to the point where Mahito spends the first half of the fight chasing him down, and all Yuji can do is run in response. After getting his head back in the game, Yuji then hits Mahito with a back flash of his own 2 separate times in the same fight and pushes Mahito to evolve to a state that no one has ever seen. This Mahito then slams and beats down Yuji, who can't even damage him at this point. And Yuji is almost out of options, with Mahito being on a completely different level than he was before, having no choice but to hit Mahito with a back flash imbued with every ounce of strength that Yuji had. This plan works after a distraction from Todo and Yuji takes out an evolved Mahito that was even stronger than Hanami was in the exchange event, an attack that would have gotten taken out almost everyone that Yuji had ever fought at that point had it hit him. Yuji gets blissed by Nalia without Nalia even using his full strength. This gets interrupted by Yuta, who scares all of them just by showing up, and since his cursed energy has a presence that Yuji compares to Gojo himself. Yuta, in what seems like a limitless pool of cursed energy, challenges Yuji and vowed to execute him to the Jujutsu higher-ups. Yuta has already beaten one of the strongest sorcerers on the planet at this point, who had with him enough power to wipe out every sorcerer in Japan with certain odds. Yuta explains that he's not even physically strong on his own, but uses his cursed energy to take him to those top tier levels of strength. So much cursed energy that it's even more than Gojo's. The 2 lock blades in Yuji snaps Yuta's katana with 1 kick, and Yuta takes the wind out of Yuji with the same attack, having Rika put him in a chokehold that Yuji can't break free from without Rika even using her full manifestation. After killing Yuji, Yuta revives him using reversed curse technique and tells him that Gojo Sensei was the one who asked him to look after Yuji. During culling games, Yuji tracks around Higurama, a modern day sorcerer that has his curse technique awakened by Kenjaku's idol transfiguration. Higurama is thought to be a genius by those around him and reaching the same level as a grade 1 sorcerer in only 12 days with no training, and did this by killing everyone that he ran into. Higurama's domain expansion uses a Shikigami named Judge Man that, when convicting its targets of a crime, can take away any ability that they had to use cursed energy. So Yuji is now fighting a grade 1 sorcerer level opponent who should have their strength on par with a special grade cursed spirit, seeing as a source where his real strength is closer to a curse that's 1 grade above their own. And Yuji can not only keep up with him, but he can also hold his own and even damage Higuruma during their fight, showing that even without any control over his cursed energy, Yuji is now far stronger than he was when he was getting blitzed by special grades, and is continuing to grow the further that he goes. Divergent Fist is one of Yuji's most effective techniques. It made its first appearance in his mission with Nanami to track down Mahito in Chapter 20. Divergent Fist was originally caused by a lag in Yuji's cursed energy, where his cursed energy couldn't keep up with his body's natural speed. The technique causes Yuji to hit his opponent 2 times with 1 strike, since first he'll hit them with his fist and the damage from his cursed energy will come after. This is an effective technique because that catches Yuji's opponents off guard by attacking them a second time when they weren't expecting it. Although it being something that Yuji has mastered in the Kyoto Exchange event made it ineffective against special grades, it's worth noting that at this point in the story, Yuji no longer has Sukuna inside of his body, although it's worth going over what benefits it offered him while he did. Sukuna living inside of Yuji's body offers him immunity to anything that would tamper with his soul, since anything that does would tamper with Sukuna's soul, and Sukuna would attack whatever was invading them on sight. When Yuji swaps with Sukuna's against a special grade, the difference in their strength is very clear. This is because Sukuna and Yuji are completely separate people with different cursed energy pools, and while some may think that Yuji gets stronger every time he eats one of Sukuna's fingers, that is only ever attributed to Sukuna himself, where all of Yuji's strength increases come from his training or from a deeper understanding of his own cursed energy. This is most evident in all of Yuji's fights, where Sukuna is even remotely involved. But later on, when Sukuna finally reveals his plans and took over Megumi for good, we saw a quick brawl between Sukuna and Itadori himself. Sukuna did notice that despite his attacks, Yuji was not backing down at all, and was just head-on taking damage while attacking Sukuna. This showed that Yuji has quite an endurance to Sukuna's slashes, but a point can be made that it was Megumi holding Sukuna back at that point. While Sukuna did run away to take his bath at the moment after Maki interfered too, but now that Sukuna is back in his original form and Itadori has joined the battle, we have to wait and see what Itadori can do against the King of Curses and his best friend nonetheless. Hope this video helps. Signing out, Aniverse.